Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I am your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Taffi Schurz. Taffi is the Managing Director of the Central North Regional Division for Casilo. Taffi brings over 15 years of legal solution expertise. With prior vice president roles in operations, software development, and sales, she excels in leadership, having led teams generating $250 million plus in revenue and overseeing billion-dollar M&A projects. Taffi holds a master's degree in organizational communications, is certified in Lean Six Sigma and PMP, and is a sought-after industry speaker. You can find Taffi on LinkedIn by searching Taffi Schurz JSO or by emailing her at taffishurz@gmail.com. Hello, Taffi. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Hello, Olivia. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited for us to dive in and really go through your journey and learn a lot from you. But to start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Taffi Schurz?
Success, honestly, I think early in my career, it had to do with titles and dollars and cents. And while those things are still important, I think it's uh, making sure that we feel like we have accomplished something that we are proud of and that we can smile about at the end of the day. So I think all of those other kind of bells and whistles are great. But at the end of the day, if we really feel like we've accomplished something that we're happy about, then I think that that's true success.
And you and I have had multiple conversations on this previously, and your journey in really understanding not just the legal side of things and working in different industries and different departments within industries, but really what drives you within each of those and builds you up to who you are at the end of the day. And I want to discuss all of that because there's so many interesting insights to what you do, and really you do a lot of data mining and
Mm.
finding the data in things. So I want to dive in first to that side of things. So what made you decide to go into legal, but more importantly, specialize within the litigation and data mining aspect within the legal field?
Olivia, I will tell you that it was actually a fluke. It was one of those things that the all of the stars aligned in the universe. And I got into the industry and then I never left. But I started my career off actually as a university instructor. I was teaching at Clemson University, and I was looking to kind of get out of academia and move over into the corporate world because that's kind of what my master's was focused in. And I kind of had that in the back of my mind for a while. And I just so happened to meet someone who was friends who had a software development company. And they said, hey, we don't have any sort of educational materials for the software we're developing. Would you like to help? It was a perfect opportunity because at that time it was exactly kind of what I was looking for, kind of a startup, a small feel. And it was exciting. I had never worked with, of course, the type of software that they were engineering. And so it was a great opportunity. So then started working there, and then my career kind of took off, and I remained at that organization, and then hopped and skipped to a couple others as well. And like I said, I remain in e-discovery today.
And it's one of those things I love how you mentioned too. It was something that kind of just came upon you. You didn't look for going into the data mining and all that. It was, I want to transition into corporate and what are the skill sets I have here that can apply with the roles that were open at that time as well. So going from the academic side of things to corporate, what was that transition like for you?
I mean, that was probably the hardest transition. And it's something that, of course, everybody would understand. You go from being a university instructor where you're teaching classes throughout the day, you have office hours, and then going to an immediate kind of more, I don't even want to say 9 to 5 because that's not the hourly structure, but just at the office all day, always being on. So I think it took me a while to get in the right habits that I needed to be successful at work. Understanding that you don't have to be, and it's not realistic to believe that people can be quote unquote on for 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day, that they are going to work very well in spurts of time. And for everybody, it's a little different on how long or short those spurts are. But embracing that and becoming comfortable with it did take a while.
And I want to just ask a follow-up question because
Mhm.
as someone who also was working myself at the time in corporate while being a professor at a university,
Mhm.
there is those things that are different and you have to be able to shift in real time to the situation. Like most things in life, when you go from work to your personal life, you have to do a shift. If you work two jobs, like more and more people are doing, you have to be able to shift depending on the role. So for you, even though you weren't necessarily doing them at the same time, what were things you were taking from your academia knowledge base that you were going, hey, let's explore this more in the corporate side and merge some of those things that you were taking from past experiences?
Sure. So there are a couple, maybe few things that kind of come out with it. So when I was teaching nonverbal communication, argumentation, and debate and public speaking. And so, of course, I was able to take all of those skills and lessons that I used to teach my college students to then actually put them into work in the corporate space, which was very interesting to see because you read the textbooks, you
Mhm.
understand everything. But then when you can actually apply those concepts into business, it was a little bit mind blowing to me. Another thing that I try to do when making the shift from academia to corporate, and especially in the legal field as well, it is very serious. Everybody is very serious. And I try to make sure that we take facets of that seriousness away and understand that there are people who are doing the work behind all of this. And these people have other wants, needs, and it's just a job. So, really kind of pulling those folks out from what it is that they actually do and understanding who they are as people instead of maybe what their title is.
I love that because no matter where we come from, sometimes that title or hierarchy really plays a role.
Mhm.
And to different people in different organizations or, different situations in life, it
Mhm.
can be all seriousness all the time. But when you only look at, facts, especially we'll say legal or
Mhm.
things like engineering, where it's very fact based industries, sometimes you forget there are people making decisions or driving things. And sometimes those people have a bad day. So even if you're just talking about data, you should also still be in touch with that interpersonal skills as well.
Absolutely. And I think that that has gotten, well, I should say, I think that that has helped me through a lot of situations because you can obviously tell when somebody is very upset or they feel frazzled, or again, because of the seriousness of the work that we have, when sometimes they just need somebody to ask them how they're doing and say, I know that this is really hard, what it is that we're working on with this particular project. And we're going to get through it together. And, let's focus on the together part. And I think that that really helps because then people understand that they're not alone in that process.
And I want to move on now to more
Mhm.
of that data mining and really leveraging different skill sets that we just touched upon a little bit, but even other parts of that. So we previously discussed the notion often raising and being talked about in
Mhm.
communities about would individuals feel comfortable with their written communication if it was in a courtroom setting. That was a discussion you and I
Mhm.
had actually the very first time we talked of the importance of understanding what you put in writing. And the aspect you brought up to me in something that you said was I have talks with people on would you want this presented in the courtroom? And it really dawned on me of like, you're adding a perspective of it. I
Mm.
always bring up, if I wouldn't want my grandparents to see it or family members to see it, then like, don't post it, don't say it.
Yeah.
Maybe take a step back. But courtrooms and legal side of things always add that an additional layer of like, this is serious, this isn't a game. So I loved when you brought that up, and especially in today's digital age where sending messages is effortless. People don't always think
Mhm.
before they type because it can be such an instant. I could grab my phone, I can grab my laptop, I can write it out, I could send, and they're going to see it. And then once you take emotions out of it again, it's like, oh, wait, should I have done that? So, why do you believe it's so crucial for people to consider the implications of, okay, would you want this being seen in a courtroom?
Yeah, it's really difficult because everyone's personal and professional lives run together, and so the communication styles that we have personally also then affect how we communicate professionally. So you're used to, just like you're saying, picking up your phone, typing a message to a friend, and then at work maybe using the online chat that you have for your organization. And sometimes the communication styles are more casual than maybe we intend them to be. And I think it's just a lot because people don't think, well, this is just Slack that we use at our company. Nobody's ever going to see this Slack message. Nobody's going to know about this, file that I've saved in this particular location. And all I can tell people is that in the industry of e-discovery, we can find anything. So anything that you put out there, anything within your Slack, your email, text messages, whatever, photographs, we can find it. And while most of the work that you would have is probably going to be junk considered to the people who are using it for trial, you just have to know that it might not be. So depending on how you speak, how you reference situations, how you talk about people. I just go around with the same kind of understanding as you were saying a little bit ago, Olivia. And I tell people this, like, just understand that no matter what you do, it could be read by somebody at some point in time. And while it sounds creepy to some people, I think that would have been true, obviously, if this would have just been the paper age. Imagine if this got out, right? You would still be able to see it. So be careful what you put down. I think it's just more important now because, like you said, it is so easy for us to just have a knee jerk reaction with communication, put that out there, and it doesn't just disappear. It's somewhere and it'll be there for a while. And if somebody needs it, we'll be able to go and collect it and then help with it. But I know some people who get very, concerned about that as well, about their digital footprint. And I can understand that as well. I see it kind of from both perspectives, but I look at it like this is not going to be something that is going to change for us. Our digital footprint is going to continue to get larger and larger. So let's figure out the best ways to deal with it going forward.
And you brought up something that I think really needs to be highlighted. And that's the fact that anyone can read it at any point. And I'm going to take this a little step further from what you said and dive in. When I worked for Lockheed Martin and different
Mhm.
professional organizations, as a young professional and in different industries I've worked, being one of a few females on a team
Mhm.
or at my level, I saved every correspondence because I was
Mhm.
like, if something were to happen now, even if it's a Slack message, a Teams message, that little chat that pops up, oh, I have a question. Can you answer
Yeah.
this? Well, now there's that chain. And what a lot of people don't even fully realize is, for example, just use your Skype messaging.
Mhm.
That saves. It's
Mhm.
when an organization onboards you, your Skype is tied to your company email address.
Mhm.
And all that, every message that gets put through goes and saves into your email. So
Mhm.
that whole thread until you've logged off is now in your email. So if someone says something and then comes back where there could be ramifications in the future, the whole chat's in emails. It's saved in the servers. And I think sometimes people forget about that because they
Mhm.
think of chats like text messages or Slack
Mhm.
pages like text messages, where it's like, well, there's no trace. And I even went through a situation myself where when I worked for a university, there were different things going on after the book I wrote was released.
Mhm.
And a chair of a department who was looking at to use the book that I wrote went
Mhm.
to the dean and said, "Oh, I didn't know Olivia was releasing this book and all this stuff." And I said, "We're both on the same company servers. Pull the email. It's there, everything saves. Pull the email from, between us. Just search the people. You can search it and you're going to see correspondence going back to the day I was asked if I would have a sit down meeting with this publishing company, that she knew every step of the way. She
Mhm.
knew these things were happening, and green lighted them, and even green lighted bringing it into the university.
Mhm.
And they were like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, because they didn't ever think that the emails, A, there was that correspondence, but B, oh, wait, we could just check it. It isn't a hearsay,
Mhm.
she said situation. If it's in writing, we could actually pull that data. And oh, go.
No, I was just going to say that's the poster child example of e-discovery and people thinking that, oh well, we're going to be able to um, get away with this, or not be she's not going to be able to support her claims or anything else. But the data doesn't lie. So if you have that chain, of course, as long as it's going to, you're going to have an organization be able to pull it right back up, you're going to be able to find all of it.
And I want to dive more into the e-discovery for people who
Mhm.
are like, okay, how does this happen? And or some of our buffs who love the crime shows and really understanding
Yes.
people's mindset and stuff like that. Because let's be honest, with what's on Netflix and binge watching now, we all get into it. And
Yeah.
if you're someone who says you totally don't want to know how certain things happen, I feel like you're probably lying. But that's a whole nother discussion, right? But what is it like going through the process? Can you take us from the beginning of what it's like having to do discovery? Like,
Mhm.
how do you find out that you have to do it, and what is it like going through that process?
Yeah, absolutely. I will give you the novella version of it, the very short version of it. So, e-discovery can be used in just about anything, right? I don't even want to say that it's used just for litigation and purposes for legal, because you could electronically discover something without there being any sort of legal component
Mhm.
to it. For kind of the corporate world, what would happen is, let's say that your company, achieving success, is going to go out and buy another company that does something similar. We want to make sure that the Department of Justice, the SEC, FTC, all of the government agencies are happy about it. So they might issue something called a second request. And within that, our organization would come and we would take all of your email. We would take your data from your phone, anything that really you can plug into a wall that would store data, we would be able to collect that. So a person would probably go on site or potentially do it remotely, and you would give them access. They would be able to pull all of that information out. Now, once it's all out, it's in this beautiful ball of data mess. And so we have to put that in some sort of format so that we can actually look through it. And that's what the second kind of portion of it is, which is called processing. And so we have a whole department, there's a whole level of the organization where they take the bits and bytes and they put them together to make it look like the messages that you had sent from your original email. And then it's put into a software program where then attorneys can go through and read it and say, can they go ahead? Can achieving success buy this other organization? Have we found any information that would not allow this sale to go through? Nope, fantastic. Goes to trial, you buy the organization, and there you go. So it's really about finding where the data is. And that might sound like it's simple, but if you think about all of the different places where we access data, We're not just talking about just your phones and your individual computers. We're also talking about what websites did you go to? What third-party applications did you go to? So we need to go through there and really have a data roadmap so that we can figure out where everything lives, make sure that we have a complete picture of achieving success, and then be able to prove that in trial.
For you, what is the most fun aspect of the data mining and litigation process for you? And what is something, I'll add to this, and what is something that no matter how many times you do it, is your favorite part of the whole process?
So, my favorite part is actually at the beginning, and it's because that is when we are in our real initial part of problem solving mode. That is one of the things that I love to do just in life in general. I love to help solve problems. So, at the beginning of a case, it's kind of okay, well, what steps do we need to do? What are we looking for? Have we thought about this? And no case that I've ever had is exactly the same. So within everything that I do on a daily basis, there is always going to be some variance. So those are the things that I like the most. If I was trying to, solve the same sorts of problems all the time, that might get monotonous. But I worked on cases that have to do with bank work, with investigations with the FBI, when an organization buys another organization, when somebody is suing an organization for patent infringement. So it really runs the gamut. And that's what I love the most. And it's to sit down at the very beginning and really listen to our clients to figure out what it is that they are trying to do. What is the case about? What are we hoping to get out of it? And then being able to offer best advice and best practices so that they can actually achieve their goals. So those things are great. And then obviously the best of all, with the ribbon kind of tied, is if whichever side we're working on wins the trial. So then we can, know that we took part in that, but it's a little sprinkling of everything along the way.
And I want to follow up with that with something you said in your last answer and even this answer is being able to figure out what the problem is as well as what you're really looking for
Mhm.
through discovery.
Mhm.
So for individuals, whether it's a company or person who's sitting here going, okay, I didn't realize how many different areas my data can really be pulled. And I
Mhm.
want to make sure I'm doing things ethically. So if anything
Mhm.
ever comes up, it isn't an issue. What are some little things people can start thinking about on, maybe if they write messages in Slack or searching things and how to make sure they are not getting themselves in sticky situations long term?
Again, just think about it like your mother, your supervisor, whomever gets you a little scared, is looking over your shoulder and just understanding that no matter what you say, that person can read it. And I think that if you just go into situations like that, again, it's not supposed to be kind of this scary, overlord mentality, but it's just if you're going to put your information out there, you should understand the consequences of what's going to happen with that. So making sure that you can type whatever you want. You can, send out into the ether the types of messages that you want to, but then people can't be shocked if it is then used later and they say, well,
Mhm.
I never said that or I never did that. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, the data doesn't lie. So you can go about your daily business and not a care in the world and type kind of however you want to, just as long as you know and you're comfortable with the fact that maybe a federal judge might read what you're typing in that message someday. And would you like that federal judge to see that? And in that instance, you would say, okay, well, let me just take a step back and rethink this a little bit.
And I think that really even ties to your personal side of life too. And I'm thinking
Mhm.
about this one situation in particular that I don't totally want to dive into right now, because it is someone else's situation and I wouldn't want to tell their story, but it is something where in their personal life, and I was there advocating
Mhm.
or those individuals, there was something that was written and
Mhm.
it was perceived a very different way, or when that other person who wrote it said it was that
Mhm.
isn't what I meant. I wrote that and I took the time to write that, but that isn't what I meant. And it
Mhm.
had a lot of effect on the people who read it.
Yeah.
And it is something that I think even within families or friends, when we all get very mad or passionate, I should say, about a situation, we take to our phones, we take to writing down our
Mhm.
feelings, which can be healthy. However, you have to take the notion that when someone sits back, if Taffy and I were having some disagreement, we'll say personally,
Mhm.
and Taffy wrote me something and I'm heated in the moment and I'm like, okay. And then I go tell two of my friends the story and I'm
Mhm.
reading the messages and we're all going, wow, that's what she said. And then Taffy comes back to me and goes, well, like this part, I didn't mean that, but I wrote it.
Mhm.
It's like that has such an effect on where you could be positioned after the fact, either relationship wise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the benefit that we have in that response is that everybody is under the exact, well, I don't want to say exact same, but in your probably, social circle of people, everybody is under the same sort of contract of they're putting their lives out into the world. And so that's why when sometimes friends write you and they say, "Oh, well, I didn't mean to actually type that. That's not what I actually said," that we don't just completely write them off because we understand that, again, communication styles, sometimes people have knee jerk reactions, or, that we understand that it's very kind of final, that text. And once it's out there, it's out there. And we know that we can't take it back. So I think that we hopefully can do a good job of giving people grace because this isn't about perfection and how we communicate with one another. It's about being settled with it, understanding what it is that we're doing, knowing where our data is, and then understanding we're just a bunch of humans
Mhm.
throwing that information out there. And I'd like to believe we're doing the best that we can.
And I think that's really important. And something else that leads me to my next question of
Mhm.
we're all human, so there's a level of everything we do that is human. And when
Mhm.
you're going through data and you're going through emails and correspondence or going into an organization and go think about this messaging, what it portrays. How do you, even when you deal with business on
Mhm.
your end of things, how do you deal with mixing the personal and the emotional intelligence side of things with like I have a point to get across. Like you need, especially when it comes to the legal side of things, it's serious information. But how do you balance that when you're interacting as well with in your community and within your job functions within organizations?
Yeah, and you know what? That has changed a lot over my career, and I'm sure that people probably say that. It's a general statement, just because when I was younger in my career, I didn't think that I could have that emotion in there. And while I don't think that I'm old or anything, I do think that it was very kind of driven into people. As a female in corporate executive world, you had to make sure that you were tough like your male counterparts and that you would communicate that way. Otherwise, you wouldn't be taken seriously. So, I went kind of through that and was very kind of point, 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 point. And one day I had one of my bosses say, you might want to try being a little bit more vulnerable in your communication. To which I immediately said, do you say that to your other male colleagues? And he was like, no, I don't say it to you. Unfortunately, you're the woman, you're going to have to deal with this. And he wasn't wrong because I think that there is one end of the spectrum where, again, we try to be too just to the point vanilla, don't put any sort of emotion into that. And then, of course, the opposite end as well. So I think over time, what I have learned is that people appreciate when you show them your human side. Anybody is going to appreciate that. And I try to get that across in every sort of, again, conversation that we have. If I need something and it's very important, I will make sure that I show the empathy of, I know I'm asking you to do this and I'm really sorry. This is something that we need right away. Is this even possible? Trying to talk to people like they, of course, can manage their times like they're professional that they are. If somebody tells me no, no for something, I don't keep asking questions. Why? I say, okay, and we move on because we don't need to dive into that. So I think learning the balance of what do we need to do so that we can sound professional and people respect us, obviously, while it is that we are presenting, but then also go in and show that we're not a person in kind of an iron suit, that there is an actual person underneath. And that's been a hard lesson. And I still kind of grapple with it from day to day about how much I should share with colleagues or, what questions I should ask, making sure that I'm not overstepping boundaries. But I always kind of, if I am asking a question or if I'm talking about something and I say, please let me know if you're not comfortable about this. And I think that people really appreciate kind of the openness of the communication with that.
And I think the human side of things can be demonstrated in many
Mhm,
different ways as well. It's asking those questions, like you said, or if you're not comfortable, let me know. It's the body
mhm,
language, it's even the experiences we bring to the table. And like yourself, I have the Green Belt Six Sigma,
mhm,
the PMP, the different certifications, and some of them are the same that you have, and I
mhm,
love that, and some are different. But I think even having those certifications in different areas really brings that unique flavor to the table. You touched
mhm,
upon ice cream flavors and
mhm.
different flavors earlier, so I had to play on that a little bit. But it brings something different to the table experience wise. So for you, why did you decide to get those certifications, and how has getting those certifications in other areas helped you throughout your career?
Sure. I think that they have been one, I am always looking to get, you know, better at what it is that I'm working with, in the professional field. And I'm ridiculously interested in learning just in general. I mean, I taught at a university just like you. I think that education is insanely valuable, whether it be something that is very oh, what's the word that I'm looking for? Whether it's something that's very traditional or non-traditional, it doesn't even really matter how you're getting educated. The fact that you're getting educated is important. And so I believe that the certifications, unfortunately, the first thing that they do, which it's like I almost hate to even say it, it's almost like a gatekeeper. So when people are looking at other folks within industries, they need a quick way to figure out if this is somebody who maybe they want to kind of speak with. Do they have any sort of background? How serious is this person going to be when we start talking to them, right? Especially if we're asking for advice or anything else. And so I think that those certifications, just those letters behind your name really help because it opens the door because then people see, oh, well, this person takes themselves seriously to this extent, goes out, studies, takes that seriously, goes past the tests, and then obviously many of them have continued education that
Mhm.
you have to get as well. So it shows that you can, hang in there and that you're going to stay along for the ride. So selfishly, I love to get the certifications just because of that education component. I do think that it is important, obviously, within industry, unless you are wildly successful otherwise, to have those certifications because it does show future employees, colleagues, whomever, the type of person you are in a business setting.
And I was smiling and laughing a bit when you started saying the aspect of a lot of them have things you have to do to keep your certification,
Hmm.
those recertifications. Because actually, right before our recording, I was doing some SHRM recertification.
Yeah.
So I was laughing because I'm like, this is literally what I was doing right before we
Uh-huh.
started this. And each industry is a little different.
Hmm.
I have a degree and certification in every business area. So
Hmm.
some you need 15 hours every
Hmm.
3 years. Some it like SHRM is 60 hours of
Hmm.
education. And other, the ASCM association, it's 75 hours. And
Mm-hmm.
so it kind of depends. But even when I'm not in that specific niche, one thing, like you said, it's being able to stay on top of where things are shifting. And that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing, like yourself, that I love with it is, you know, what people don't realize too is, especially with those certifications, it's not a one and done. I passed the
Yeah.
test and now I have the certification and I could use it forever and just say I have
Mm-hmm.
it and not have to do anything. It really is about the continuous education. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, even though like I'm not an HR manager, I own my own business, it's okay, well, I still want to know about the
Mm-hmm.
laws that are going on, the people skills, how other organizations are handling certain things. So then if I consult on this topic, we can actually talk about, hey, this is what the industry is now saying. Like, to do. Here's where the gap is, and this is what I'm feeling. And I think that's really important. And something that excites me, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is the fact that even if you're not using it day in and day out, because you have to do those recertification credits, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do keep in touch with what is actually happening in real time within the industry.
No, absolutely. And in all honesty, I think that continued education is almost more important than just studying for the exam itself. And I don't even want to say sort of it. In my case, it is because just like you're saying, it's that constant learning. So instead of trying to absorb the knowledge, understand it, and apply it to a test, now on a yearly basis, or if you're trying to get all of your hours in, it might take months at a time to kind of squeeze all of those in, especially with the number that you have. It's You're going through those motions um, so much more than just sitting down and studying for the test. So you get so much more exposure to it. And by staying on the top of kind of what it is that's going on, then of course you can remain relevant and it helps in conversations. And I like to be able to, again, just how I had said, I'm a problem solver and I can't really solve problems if I don't know how to solve them real time with the information that we have around us now. So it's just in my best interest to keep up on top of those things and really kind of just keep that education going. I don't know how you do it with all of those certifications.
It,
That's a
it's a
lot.
lot of
Yeah.
planning and a lot of the benefit. And I will say and touch upon this because, like yourself, I really do believe,
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't have a college degree, because not
Oh, yeah.
college isn't fit for everyone, and everyone has a different journey. And I'm not gonna sit here and say one is better than the other because we all hit our paths in life through
Mm-hmm.
different things. And my boyfriend, for example, who's a chief in the US Coast Guard, has spent 12 years in the Coast Guard, is an engineer, and knows more about engineering than some of the engineers I've worked with in corporate settings, right? And can just take things and problem solve. And I'm like, because he continuously does
Mm-hmm.
continuous education, is going to, classes where they're going to be implementing new things within the Coast Guard on boats, what's working in even other industries that might not
Mm-hmm.
be the Coast Guard, so they could apply it. So I really do think it's not necessarily a college versus non-college conversation. It's a conversation on, take the time to get the certifications,
Mm-hmm.
because it is about the continuous education aspect of it. And it really is beneficial to be able to know what you're saying is credible.
Mm-hmm.
That, listen, I have this knowledge in my back pocket, and it's because I actually did that. Now, for me, going back to touching upon how I do it with all the other ones,
Mm-hmm.
certain industries and certain certifications have a different lap period. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I did, I'm not gonna lie, I got a few of them right at the same time. And so I never thought about the fact that
Uh-huh.
might lapse around the same time. I'm lucky enough that it was the SHRM one, which lasts every 3 years, and then it was the project management one that now
Mm-hmm.
lasts every 5 years. So I do have a
Mm-hmm.
little longer to do them. But what I do for me, and this might help someone who does have multiple different certifications is I really sit down and go, okay, how many hours is this going to take?
Mm-hmm.
And even right now, I'm doing the SHRM one. It's like, okay, we're almost a year into the renew, a half a year into the renew certification aspect of the 3 years. I need 60 hours. So if I could do four, quarter two might be my slower time
Mm-hmm.
with just life going on. Let me get 20 to 30 hours in throughout that quarter. And then next quarter two, I could spread it out the same way. It's finding in your own lifespan that, circle of a year, I should say, where your ebbs and flows are, because that will help
Mm-hmm.
you plan for them. But one thing that I also want to touch upon, and you mentioned this too with your certifications, is it gives you that seat and that credibility with someone.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like it also shows that you're someone who's going to go above and beyond for the role.
No, absolutely true. And it's, the base level knowledge is fine. And I 1,000% agree with you about formalized education, college education as opposed to other types of education. Just learning is important, right? And that's going to be very important. In the way that you can show that are these certifications. So I love to learn. I love to be someone who continues to find out what is going on around me in the business world. How can I show other people that quickly? Have those letters behind your name. And that's the quickest way to do it. Like I said, I don't necessarily love that we
Mhm.
have to have those, but how else would we get through how many hundreds of thousands of millions of people that are out there? How can we easily identify people in a way that we would understand kind of what their expertise is? You can't understand somebody's expertise just by looking at them.
Exactly. And I think it's exactly the aspect of how can you differentiate yourself as you're trying to grow throughout your career and maybe pivot. Even I remember, when before I worked at Lockheed Martin, I was getting interviewed by them
Mhm,
and I had the Tableau certification. I'd gotten
mhm,
it. I'd heard about it when I went back and got my MBA. And it was during COVID and Tableau was offering for college students the free, like you could do this
mhm.
for free. And I was like, if anyone has ever looked sometimes at what some of the certifications can cost, when there's a free, I mean, free anything is great. Let's
Yeah.
be honest. I don't care if it's a certification, an ice cream, a cookie, free is great.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, I gotta do this. Fast forward a few months, and I was interviewing for Lockheed, and we're talking, and I'm in a interview with four people, and something comes up. I forget exactly how it came up, and they go, "Oh, wait, you know about Tableau?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, this and that." And they're like, "What is your thoughts on it? On how
Mhm,
is it easy is it to integrate this and that? Because we just got word it's going to be integrated within the whole organization. So
mhm,
our division is going to have to convert these things to Tableau."
mhm,
And none
mhm,
of them had any, knowledge on even the software. They hadn't seen it yet. So they're like, what are your thoughts on converting it? And my new boss, when I was hired, did not lie. And he goes, one thing that set you apart tremendously and outweighed the fact that you hadn't had years in the supply chain industry
mhm,
were three facets. One is that you were part of a professional organization. I'd
mhm,
started the university chapter when I went back to school for supply chain management. I sat on the state board and I had the Tableau certification. He goes, we narrowed it down, and this role on average had people working in it who had 15 years of experience. And I had nowhere near that. And he was like, you were narrowed down partially because we saw, you were involved, you were doing this continuously. He goes, but what won you over the job was the fact that none of us at this table, and we're all managers and VPs of department, have used this software before.
mhm,
And you actually can help even the higher ups understand the best way to implement this so it's the seamless. And I was actually brought on within my department. Once I started, they're like, here you go. You're going to be in charge. You're going to be one of 3 people in charge of this project. But I always say that's a perfect example of how even when you're thinking about getting it, you might not know the role it can play, but it can really set you apart long term.
No, absolutely. And when we talk about, when you mention certification costs, it's not just the actual time or the money that's spent in it, it's the time, just like you had talked about before. You have 60 hours. So it's the opportunity cost. It really does show that, okay, she absolutely is going to know what she's talking about when we go down this, because she's put in the time and the effort and continues to do so. And so that part's great. And yeah, this, I think the opportunity cost is what gets everybody. Do we have time to actually go through the motions to get certified?
And that being said, I want to start to close up, though. I feel like we can really go on, go down like 3 different rabbit holes within this
Yeah.
conversation. You and I can really talk about many different things here.
Yeah.
But Taffi, how can people connect with you if they want to talk to you?
Well, absolutely. They obviously can look me up on LinkedIn. So again, it's I'm Taffi Schurz JSO on LinkedIn. And then for email, if they just want to email me, ask me anything about e-discovery, career development, anything else like that, then they can write me at taffyschurz@gmail.com.
Thank you, Taffi, for all of your insight today.
No, thank you so much. Have a great day, Olivia.
Thank you. And a few of our key takeaways from today's conversation is take the time to make some more serious, conversations a little bit less serious. Put that emotional and personal side into things. Understand when you need to be serious, and even when there are serious conversations that are being had, how can we make it a little bit more personable? As well as in the e-discovery process, everything can be found. So remember that you are not going to pull the wool over someone who is going and being brought in to do e-discovery. So think about that as you're going through your career or as you're having certain conversations, especially when you're seeing, whether you're a business owner or an employee, certain conflicts arise where things can be put in question. And it isn't even always from a legal point of view, but take it as if there's something that needs to be brought up to HR. What is that conversation? Be mindful of what you're putting into email or messages, because even though it's a message, it is never lost. We can all find it. As well as no matter what you do, someone can always read it, right? So if someone looks hard enough, and I love how Taffi said this, but it is true. We can all find it. There are ways. And if you look hard enough, even if you're not in a high position, you can find it too. And it does come down to as well thinking about, would you want someone in a courtroom reading this or perceiving it a certain way? And that's something that I love that Taffi brings up is think about that. Would you want a judge to read it in front of 15 people? Would you want 15 strangers who don't know you and are going to make that first impression to read it and hear it from someone else's mouth? As well as no matter what you do, oh, I just said that one of no matter what you do, someone could read it. So I think we all got that point. As well as people appreciate when you show them your human side. Sometimes, especially when we're in a position of authority or power, or we're in that work setting, you want to get everything done and you need to have hard conversations, but not everything needs to be the black and white. Hey, do this, just do it, don't question, or we're not going to have a conversation. Look at things from the human perspective, because we all have many different facets of our lives going on at one time. And there can be things that if we lean in and say, is this making you uncomfortable? Like Taffi said, or go, is this the right time to do this? Or doing those check-ins Taffi had also mentioned, it can really play a role in not only that humanizing that person and making sure they know you're listening to them, but also shows that you're going to show up and you actually care about them as a human and know that not every day is going to be their best day. as well as ask yourself, how can you show you are learning? This was the deep dive that Taffi and I started going down towards the end, but it is really important. Ask yourself, as you're continuously growing every single day, how can you demonstrate that you've gained that knowledge? This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Taffi Schurz. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.